All right, air quality. So, up to this point, I've talked about what's in our air, primary pollutants. Those are things that basically get put into the atmosphere by human activities, things like combustion. Secondary pollutants, things like ozone, those basically form when primary pollutants react with sunlight. And then I talked a little bit about unhealthy levels of ozone. The next really concerning part of air quality is particulate matter. Particulate matter represents tiny little solid particles. These are so small that the amount of drag that's actually pushing them up ends up actually counteracting the gravity that's pulling them down. So they can remain suspended in the air. Things like pollen are types of particulate matter. We call these groups aerosols. Aerosols are basically solid particles and some liquid droplets that are suspended in the air. Usually these irritate people. They irritate their lungs, they irritate their breathing, they cause sneezing like in an earlier video, but they aren't necessarily poisonous. They're not going to poison your body. They could still harm you by irritating your lungs, by irritating your throat, by irritating your body, but they're not poisonous. These include things such as soot, dust, smoke, pollen, and then there are some more dangerous ones: arsenic, asbestos. Asbestos is actually a carcinogen, meaning it can actually create cancer, can cause cancer. There are two main categories of particulate matter: PM10 and PM2.5. And those numbers represent the diameter, the sizes of those particulates. PM10 are particulates of 10 micrometers, 2.5 are 2.5 micrometers. PM2.5 in particular is very, very concerning because it's very, very fine, very, very tiny. And so it can really get deep into things. Combining ozone and particulate matter are the two factors that we actually use to determine air quality. And air quality is actually based on a score, and the score is actually a combination between how much ozone is in the air in terms of parts per billion, and then how many of these particulate matters are there in the air. If you've ever noticed a day where it was really smoky outside, particulate matter on those days is going to be really high. On those days, you would see a very bad air quality. On those days, you would see a very bad air quality. And this is, you don't have to memorize this, but this just kind of shows a little bit about each of the categories of air quality, from good, moderate, unhealthy to for sensitive, unhealthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous. Basically, the worse the air quality is, the more problems it creates to people. Good air quality, everybody's good. Moderate air quality, maybe the most sensitive people might get some minor health concerns. And then as you get higher and higher, more and more people get affected. By the time you actually get to hazardous, that's the kind of thing that can actually kill people. That's the kind of things that can actually kill people, including healthy people. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, I'm just going to speak for the Bay Area right now. We actually have a program called Spare the Air that we use to actually help mitigate and slightly reduce bad air quality. Spare the Air days are days when weather conditions, which we'll talk about in the next video, are particularly favorable for bad air quality. In the summertime, typically this happens when you get what's called an inversion. An inversion allows for lots of pollution to stay put near the ground. An inversion behaves like a lid. And so any pollution that's near the ground can't dilute out. During the winter time, spare the air days are issued when particulate matter becomes an issue. This usually happens because as wintertime comes, it gets cold. As it gets cold, people start burning wood in fireplaces. Suddenly, there's smoke coming out of every chimney in the entire Bay Area. If you get an inversion, if you get a day where weather conditions don't allow for any mixing to occur, that can cause all of that smoke to just build up near the ground, and that ends up becoming a big issue. During a winter spare the air day, a ban on burning of wood ends up being enforced. Basically, on those days, you can't burn wood. They say no burning wood, no fireplaces, no chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Unfortunately, it's polluting the air too much. Now, what causes this? We'll talk about that in our last video.